So obviously this is my first review and I don't expect to get everything perfect the first time, but I will try my best, so bear with me. I decided to play the entire series right before Borderlands 3 and give my initial review of it in its entirety. You heard that right. This is a review of all the games except 3. Know every detail of each story bullarchy, because that will take me ages to go over. Just my general opinion on each of the games. I'm just going to show gameplay as it relay my ideas and show specific things on when I come to them. I'll begin with a little story on how Borderlands began for me. I began playing the first Borderlands game back when it had first released at a friend's house, not knowing what kind of game it was. It was a pool of questions as to what or why was happening throughout it, but I did enjoy every second nonetheless. Just running around, kicking ass, taking names. It was a ton of fun and I never forgot it since. That friend then moved away, so I never got to finish the game. I was then blinded to the rest of the series several years after. Before I knew it, Borderlands 2, Borderlands the pre-sequel, and Tales from the Borderlands had all come out to tell a huge story. One day after that time had passed, I noticed at the store a name of a game I hadn't seen in years. Borderlands, the Handsome Collection. When I found that, I knew I had to get it to return to the huge landscape of savages called Pandora. I had the game within my possession for years to come, and I never had touched it. So many games have been played on my PS4 until I finally decided it was time to make its return. Then I saw something I knew was a sign. Borderlands Game of the Year Edition for PS4. I proceeded to buy the game, and thus it began, back to where it started. And by the way, warning, there are spoilers ahead. Okay, so I'm gonna come out right and say it. I'm not 100% a fan of the cel shading art style. I don't have anything against cel shading specifically. From what I've seen, it actually makes colors and different things pop in a game, like Telltale Games for example. They have what seemed to me a spectacular looking set of games, and cel shading seems to not age as far as I can tell. I just don't like the cartoonish feel of it all sometimes, if that makes any sense. As if I can't take a game 100% seriously because of that. But obviously Telltale Games and the Borderlands games are great in their own right, and I'll be damned if the art style alone is going to stop me from playing such good games. So none of my ratings are directly impacted by the art style, because to me those games will make it work. Now that is out of the way, let us begin. The story begins with the first 4 Vault Hunters, Lilith, Roland, Mordecai, and Brick, being told by a mysterious being to go in search of the vault for all types of loot and riches for whoever finds it. After scouring the planet for the vault pieces and laying shit sandwiches on everyone's doorstep for the 3 pieces to that vault key, it's stolen by a bitch that looks like she sucked her way into power. Our heroes then make their way to the vault to stop that slut and take the loot for themselves, only to find the vault held nothing but a raging monster ready to throat fuck whoever lets it loose onto the world. All that time searching for the pieces of the vault key to have it just be a monster? Seems kinda fucked. That bitch tricked us. What a hoe. It wasn't until I played through Borderlands 1 that I had realized just how long these games in the series would take. But something about its charm held me in like a warm baby in a blanket waiting for the next sip of breast milk when I began to find those orange sparkled guns ready to fist into each bandit I came across in that barren wasteland. Each game has its own piece of the story that tells itself on a grand scale throughout the planet Pandora and its moon Elpis. The first Borderlands game was a nice beginning to the series, but just didn't hold enough in plot to sway me over to begin it again. That doesn't mean it's a bad game by any means. It's fun as all hell. Each game has this build, fight, loot scheme that is just so satisfying to feel. With each new level you gain a skill point to allocate to a skill within your character's power. My issues with this game is that it can feel quite stiff at times, and a lot of the things within it feel super slow in comparison to the other games. I will cut the slack though, because it is the first of the series and there's always a first time for everything. It also had 4 DLC packs that came with story, and certain ones contain plot points that are canon, like in the Secret Armory of General Knox one. I personally don't enjoy how short these DLC packs can seem, and that is a returning aspect for the future games, but I do understand that they have to make whole new open areas just for each DLC, so I can understand why they're not completely fleshed out as I would hope they would be. Also, balancing in this game is way off the charts. You can either play the game normally and collect loot as you go, or you could just grind out 2 different legendary weapons that will solve all, if not every situation thinkable. No one will ever stand a candle to you and your massive schlong if you have the Hellfire SMG or the Ogre Assault Rifle. They shoot unbelievably fast and do so much damage that all will melt who come your way. Furthermore, this game isn't perfect, especially for a first attempt, but it is a damn good and fun game to play. I give this 7 bandits out of 10 butt fuckingings for the incredibly fun gameplay but lacking storyline. Further note, fuck Moxie's Underdome DLC. That is a steaming hot pile of complete goat shit, taking up hours of my life, and now the music of her bar haunts me in my dreams, making me feel wet. Alright, in my bed. Every night. Go fuck yourself. Fast forward years later to Borderlands 2, and we are greeted with a new set of Vault Hunters, Maya, Axon, Salvador, and Zero, with Gage and Krieg as DLC, set on a course to be given an objective by the infamous Handsome Jack, only to be betrayed and almost killed on the train ride over. The man plays dirty, he's ruthless. We then meet up with the original crew from the first game, and join the team of the Crimson Raiders to put a stop to Jack and his onslaught upon Pandora. At every turn, Jack seems to be watching every step you take and thwarts every idea and plan you have to overthrow him. He tricks us again in letting us kill his lapdog, Wilhelm, and letting us take the shield we need for the HQ sanctuary to be protected, but all it did was throw the shield down and he attacks us directly. Lilith then uses a secret ancient technique she learned from the Yard Rats and uses instant transmission and makes Sanctuary a flying saucer in the sky.
That's the best you got? A flying city? What could you jumps possibly have that makes you think you've got a chance against me? A siren. Sup?
It's until then we have to make this push the final one against Jack. You and the band of misfit children gather in everything you need to storm Jack's base to get to Angel, his daughter, steal the vault key he is charging through her siren abilities and stop him from summoning what is known as the warrior from the vault. After throwing every baddie at you in an attempt to stop you, you whip out the belt and tell him to come here as you take down the machine that is controlling Angel's power to the key. She then passes on to Siren Heaven, and Jack comes down to shoot Roland, killing him and sending him to Commando Heaven so he can shoot all the sentry guns he desires. After such a devastating loss, Jack kidnaps Lilith to power the key and runs off to summon the warrior. You yourself and your one-man band then make your way to show Jack who Daddy is and reclaim Lilith as your own. But before you lay him to rest with one brutal spank, he brings the warrior out to teach you a lesson. The next moments preceding, you send the warrior to time out and loot his insides full of weapons and gear, are then given a choice. Let Lilith kill Jack, or you do it yourself. Of course I did it because he needs to be punished for playing the most extreme game of hide and seek and constantly winning. You are then presented with the insides of the vault key. It shows a map of there being vaults all throughout the universe to find, and are greeted a lit song that I can't play for you because that is a copyright. Borderlands 2 is said to be the golden lamb of the series. Everyone loves this game to death, so much so that I'm sure the death count of the bosses in the game reached the numbers of an entire continent for just farming legendaries alone. I know when to give a game its praise, and this one surely does deserve it. The saying, the worth of a story is by how well the villain is written, is barely how to describe it. The story of this game was enough itself to entice me just by the villain alone, Handsome Jack. From the point of view of plot alone, you can see that he is a psychopathic genius. He is so well written that with each installment of the franchise, he portrays a fresh scent of personality that is just so much to take in. But that's just a portion of what this game has to offer. It pretty much expands in literally every direction that the first game had already done. It even had an ad campaign showing off that it had 87 bazillion guns. That's definitely way more mac and cheese noodles I can fit in my mouth at one time. Borderlands 2 opened up an array of things for the series that is literally known for. The amount of weapons, the sheer creativity and builds your characters can have, the extensive and very entertaining story, and best of all, its very fun gameplay. With each new piece of equipment, new level, and skill I obtained, there was no being on the planet that could stop or outrun the shaft of which I had become. It expanded on the already satisfying gameplay of the first, and made me a literal god amongst the people. Not to mention, it had many DLC add-ons that add even more to the experience. It made the entirety of Pandora feel alive, and anywhere I went I could destroy whatever stepped in front of me. Except the raid bosses. They fucked me harder and faster than I could say booty salads 3 times fast while getting jacked across my face. This game was truly a treat to have played and wish for more to come just like it. For example, in the mission where angels fear to tread, you're storming Jack's bunker, and as you're going through, all these robots start spawning and everything starts exploding, this badass song starts playing, and as you're ripping ass and your robot tears yours. Sorry, I carried away. It's one of the best sequences of battle against a literal robot army bent on your death. Truthfully, the only gripes I have with this game is that it feels a little unfinished. But that's to be expected, a game that feels this way because of how old it's become. Even then, this game still feels very good and it is very enjoyable to play. But this game can have a serious difficulty spike if you do not know what you are doing, such as in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode. But granted, that's meant for late game and further grinding playthroughs for people that are willing to go above and beyond.
The Incinerator clan killed Scorch for being a heathen. Stop. As gods tend to do, however, he respawned. That was interesting.
Although I will say, balancing is much better handled here because you can be broken beyond belief, whooping every ass with a wooden paddle you see fit. But if you seek further challenge, then Ultimate Vault Hunter mode has enemies that follow your level and slay you down with a blink of an eye if you don't go equipped. This game is far from perfect, but it definitely delivers on what it has to offer. I give this game 9 handsomes out of 10 jacks because this is a fantastic expansion from the first game and deserves a remaster one day. And for this clip alone.
I am the saddest man alive. Handsome Jack is dead. Some Vault Hunter killed him in cold blood. I will make it my life's work to bring Handsome Jack back and kill the Vault Hunter who slew him. This is my vow! Oh, Handsome Jack, love
Now, taking a step back to before the events of Borderlands 2, in Borderlands the pre-sequel, you are set on the moon of Pandora named Elpis. In pre-sequel, it's the coming up story of how John became Handsome Jack, took over Hyperion, and became the psychopath known today for his attempts on cleansing Pandora. He hires his own group of people, Athena, Nisha, Wilhelm, and Fragtrap, with Timothy, Jack's body double, and Aurelia as DLC to aid him in his quest to power and seek the vault for himself upon the moon Elpis. As the group arrives to his aid on the Helios space station, the girl band, the Lost Legion, starts raiding the place in order to destroy Elpis with the space station's laser cannon dubbed the Eye of Helios. You are then shot to the moon as a means of escape and are now on a quest to take back Helios and saving the moon. As you go around slapping all children in your presence, you begin to assist Jack in building a robot army to storm onto Helios and demand ransom upon the Lost Legion for stealing your toys. After going through such a demeaning set of tasks, you, Jack, Lilith, Roland, and Moxie as a support character fight through and win over the entirety of the base and chokeslam their leader Zarpedon into submission, revealing the vault is open and had been inside, claiming what she saw is the reason she is trying to destroy Elpis and stop what is coming. Jack obviously ignores this and sends the so-called Vault Hunters to search the vault. As you get there, you meet a familiar set of friends guarding the contents of the vault, the Guardians. None of these things can be in your line of sight, for they perish at your raw sexiness, and you enter the vault meeting yet another formidable being to destroy. After then sending that beat smack down into his glory hole, Jack then arrives to see a vault symbol, touching it, and it reveals to him the future events to come and tells him about the warrior on Pandora, thus beginning the fight to come in Borderlands 2. Across the Borderlands fandom, the pre-sequel is known as the black sheep of them all, said to have a lackluster storyline, bugged out gameplay, and boring but similar gameplay as 2. For me personally, I enjoyed pre-sequel for what it gave. It damn well tried its best to deliver what it was given, but it didn't quite make the cut. The engine it ran on was exactly the same as Borderlands 2. Everything feels and looks the same in terms of menus, designs, and combat. If it were to look in the mirror, it would see a Big Brother 2 and wonder what a naughty boy it's been. It's not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination, although it just feels repeated and would have preferred a new game style like the transition from Borderlands 1 to 2 and then Borderlands 2 to 3. Each one has major differences and buffs to the system, making it stand out from the last. As for the story itself, to me, it seemed that it had two majorly interesting parts to it, the beginning and the end. Everything in the middle really felt as if it was a set piece there to take up the time, and feel like it was just fleshed out when it wasn't. The type of prequel game I would have preferred would be to see everything from Jack's perspective on how he got to where he was. Like the former wife he had, what happened to her, and the reason he locked away his daughter Angel, then going on to how he planned on taking over Hyperion. The entirety of what pre-sequel was could have been the ending piece of the story on when he overtook the Helios space station and saw the future into the story of Borderlands 2. Lastly, for the gameplay, largely it was just the same as Borderlands 2, just with slight modifications and changes. Different characters of course, but largely the low gravity and slam attacks added along with the weapon types of lasers. Otherwise, the game was quite the same in terms and had the same issues as well. Even several of the legendaries were just copied over, some got different names and others different mechanics. This game is a worthy piece of the story to know in terms of the entire timeline, but from a completionist perspective, it's not necessary, although it is recommended if you want to play the story. Otherwise, you could just look it up yourself if you so wish. As for the DLC, this game was quick and lacking in that department. It didn't give too much but a mini Underdome / Slaughterhouse and a really good Claptrap DLC based on retrieving a device set in Claptrap's code. And we already know how I feel about anything that plays like the Underdome. Now don't we? Because fuck the Underdome. Where's the paddle? By far one of my favorite side quests in any Borderlands game comes from the Claptastic Voyage, the second DLC, called You Can Stop the Music. Listening to that song had my panties in a bundle because jamming into it while I inverted the kneecaps of a thresher got me harder than Mr. Claus on Christmas morning. Otherwise, there isn't much to say there. I will give this game a nice sitting of 5 skag farts out of 10 rack dookies, for it did half the job of what it should have, copying the Borderlands 2 system and nice amounts of filler episodes in the middle of the story that it made Naruto cry. And lastly, we arrive to Tales from the Borderlands. Being how this is a Telltale game, the gameplay will be the same fashion as their other story-oriented games such as The Walking Dead, with their point-and-click-esque interactions, quick-time events, and decision-making and conversations impacting the story as normal. Tales from the Borderlands to me delivered a very interesting and fascinating story, taking place after the events of 2, but before the Commander Lilith and the Fight for Sanctuary DLC within that game that sets the stage for Borderlands 3. The story is based on 2 duos, Reese and Vaughn, and Fiona and Sasha, meeting up in a place to get what they want through a scam, but end up having it stolen by another similar enemy, and they forge an alliance temporarily to get said money back and return to their normal lives. In attempting to do so, they lead into a drastic situation of leading into opening a vault to solve their problems and get back what was taken from them in the first place. All through the story, you see to it the actions and consequences of both Reese and Fiona along their journey. From my perspective, I say the story is really well written and deserves a playthrough of its own, since Telltale Games has had its return and the game can now be found again. I don't wish to spill too much on the story, because it is a really good game, and because it's a Telltale game. There's always a treat to have when playing their games. I give this game 8 Reese's out of 10 Hershey bars because the story really works, and it was nice seeing a new set of characters that aren't vault hunters take center stage and make a change in the world of Borderlands. And side note, every title card sequence with music was amazing to watch in every episode. I didn't say anything funny in this one. Shit. And that's it. That's all 4 games. I hope I didn't trigger nobody. And I will say the Borderlands franchise has been super fun to play and be a part of. Every game has introduced new and interesting things to bring to the table, except for probably pre-sequel. Barely introduced too much different. I enjoyed playing each game up until this point, completing each one in order of release, getting all the trophies and leaving nothing behind. I know I'm definitely not a professional at this already, and a lot of the review pertains to you, the viewer, having known at least the basis of what each Borderlands game is before watching this. But of course, Borderlands fans will stumble across this video to watch another point of view about their favorite franchise. All I can say is, I did my best to give my thoughts and pointers into the games as a fan myself, and hope this video was enjoyable to watch as it was to make. Now, if you'll excuse me, Borderlands 3 has been waiting in my room in its birthday suit for me to play. And to close it all off, I just want to say thanks to my friend Moses for contributing clips of Borderlands 2 that really helped put this entire video together. I really appreciate that, man. And I hope you all enjoy the video. I'll see you in the next one. Deuces.